Hello there everyone, it's me EDJ here and welcome back to the channel. We're continuing with Unbiased Histories Rome series from Dovahadi. Last time we looked into the crisis of the 3rd century, which probably is probably my favorite of this series so far. It was really fun to learn about. Like I said, it's probably one of Rome's most disastrous time periods. But the fact that they were able to get through it, thanks to the efforts of, Emperor Aurelian, the ultimate Chad of the Roman Empire. But it's amazing that Rome managed to, get through this period and continue on for, when you think that would have been the end, right, of Rome. I don't know, I just think it's a testament to Rome's tenacity and just, they weren't an easy, like, group to kill. So I don't know, I have a lot of respect for Rome for that. And yes, just to make sure I'm following the playlist correctly, yes, we are in Diocletian's Tetrarchy. So I did some little bit of research before this video, not too deep because I kind of like learning a little bit more through this series, but from what I understand, this is where Rome finally gets separated into two. Emperor Diocletian basically decides to split the empire, east and west as we kind of know it, between the Augusti, and then like the Caesar. Like I think those were the two titles. But either way, this is the period in which Rome kind of gets divided between the two. And we have seen co-emperors throughout this series. Like Rome obviously had co-emperors, but this is where it's like, all right, you rule this, you ruled this side, I ruled this side, it's more permanent, and as we eventually know, the West falls, and then the East continues as the Byzantines. So, I won't lie, this is probably what I've been looking most forward to learning about in this series. Like, I've always been interested about the separation and split of Rome, and I've even alluded it to this, like, in past videos, that I just really kind of want to learn more about this. So I did some research to kind of know this, but not too deep. I really want to see how much longer Rome goes on for and just how they made it work. And if I guess we'll probably, when I learn a bit more about it, what I guess we could discuss is, was Rome better off with two emperors and splitting, or should have always just remained one under one leader? I don't know. I think that'll be a cool discussion to have once we go through this. And yeah, that's about it. Please make sure to follow and subscribe to Dovahadi. And, I want to give credit to him and his amazing videos, which is giving me and many of you who watch these reactions with me. Well, many of you have actually already seen this stuff. I think you're just, I guess, watching someone new react to this, which is me, which is, I guess, always been the funnest part about reaction channels. Like, I like this, I want to see someone else like it, so, I don't know. The point is, if anyone is new and hasn't seen it, please feel free, and hopefully Dovahadi shall return, because he's been inactive for about a year, which is a shame, but, life happens, right? So, we'll see. Yeah, so, without any further ado, let's get to it.
Decades of civil war and barbarian invasions, Aurelian's death was mourned by all. When the catastrophe...
So I was hating a lot on the Praetorians last video because I just think they're annoying and it's just absurd, I think, how far they went. you know, and murdering emperors, and just the amount of power they have, just selling the empire at one point is just, I'm just amazed at the power they got and not ever, you know, straight up being disbanded. And I think even though they did eventually get disbanded, should have happened a lot sooner. And I will at least say, just to play the devil's advocate, the Praetorians did get rid of some pretty bad emperors. You know, they did kill some not so savory ones, like what, Elagabalus? Like he needed to go. but oh, and Caligula, yeah, like come on, you know, like I think everyone can agree we don't need those people around. But then like killing Aurelian, man, it's just the biggest crime. You know, they did kill some pretty competent leaders, and I wonder how things would have went if Aurelian had lived longer. Like he accomplished so much in 5 years, and I just really wish he had lived longer. You know, like he really maybe could have kickstarted Rome into a new golden age. I don't know. That's probably giving too much credit. I know Aurelian's very praised. Some people would say overrated. I don't think so. I think he earns the praise he gets, but still, you know, it's tough to say, right? It's those what ifs, like what if Abraham Lincoln survived or all that, you know? I don't know. A lot of speculation, but I really wish he had lived.
If he was relayed to the legions, they were consumed with the most anguished sorrow and direst anger. All of Aurelian's assassins were then rounded up and subjected to the worst tortures known to man. They then sent word to Rome, expressing that none of the officers felt worthy enough to follow on Aurelian's steps. Depression and rage the only thing in their minds. The Senate, in turn, was horrified at the prospect of having to elect the next emperor, given who he would have to live up to. So they begged the legions to choose one for them, which they refused. They begged again, were refused again, and this back and forth continued for months.
I really like learning about that, because like last video was like everyone was, I made the joke, everyone's becoming emperor of Rome, whether they like it or not. Just like some people would just walk up, I'm emperor, some legionnaire or high-ranking official, and then or even the soldiers would just kill a former emperor and then just set up one of their own. It's, again, obviously, this series is, you know, comedy, and not everything is 100%, but then again, yeah, I just kind of like the idea that after Aurelian, it's like, who could follow that up, you know? It's like when a kid kills it in the talent show, and everyone knows he killed it, and then, like, you got Jimmy to walk up next, and he's playing, like, the clarinet or something. I'm sorry, that was a bit specific, but, you know, it's like, it sucks following up someone great, and I kind of like the idea that even Aurelian's death humbled Rome. It's like, no one could just follow up in those shoes or that shadow. Yeah, I butchered that saying.
And as it did, during the Interregnum, Aurelian's wife, Oppia Severina, ruled Rome, the first and only empress of the whole Roman Empire.
Oh wow, that is super interesting actually. I did not know that even Rome had a female emperor, even if, yeah, I don't know if she's considered in the line as an official emperor, you know, like but still, holding down the fort from one of the greatest empires, thumbs up.
Did I say that she had a daughter of Aurelian? Because she did. Not that it will be relevant, I assure you. So what can we say about our little Augusta over here? Well, for starters, she wasn't a Severan. Forget the last name. Instead, she was related to Trajan's line, as the first name implies.
Oh, wow.
She was a Romano-Dacian survivor too, so if a woman ever deserved to rule Rome, Oppia's as good as it gets. And what did Oppia do with all of her power? Absolutely fuck all. Refusing to take advantage of her husband's death and just printing coins for fun while waiting for a successor to be chosen.
Oh wow.
So after 8 months of back and forth, the Senate relented and decided to pull a Nerva and elect a highly capable old geezer as emperor, Marcus Tacitus, a full-blooded descendant of the good historian. Taken by surprise with the elevation, Tacitus gave a fine speech, granting the senators lots of power to appease their egos. Quite fitting, as he would be the last emperor they ever elected into power. Oppia and her daughter then voluntarily abdicated and vanished from the history books. Tacitus then traveled to Moesia
to it's kinda smart. watching this series, a lot of people, like, if they stay in power, they either, like, live, to a ripe old age, or they eventually get killed and have to deal with all that political strife. I think that's really smart to just bail out. Like, when things are good, alright, I'm gonna bye everyone. Oh no. That's probably what I would do, quite frankly.
To the legions, saw that the legionnaires were still torturing Aurelian's assassins and decided to just ease tensions and order their executions. Meanwhile, word of Aurelian's death reached the Germs, who used this chance to remind everyone that the crisis of the 3rd century...
Okay, the Germans once again. Man, the Germans. I've already said all I can say. Tenacious, persistent, but... this is smart. If there ever was a time to attack Rome, right? It was after Aurelian's death. Like, oh, he's gone? Alright, maybe we have a much better chance now. Like we did before he showed up. I don't know.
Was still ongoing. Tacitus then sent his half-brother and Praetorian prefect, Florianus, to go clean up the Danube from 99% of the Germs. And to help him rule, Tacitus appointed the legate Probus as governor of the eastern provinces. For after a lifetime of war in the service of Aurelian, including retaking Egypt from Zenobia, Probus had become among the best generals of the time. While touring the east, Tacitus heard that the breach of the Limes Germanicus allowed the Germans to invade Gaul again. Alemanni, Franks, Goths, Vandals, Burgundians, every viral species. But before he could respond, he caught a very weird illness. It basically drove him mad, making him name all 12 months of the year in his honor, and then dying right after. Deja vu. And as the emperor's half-brother, and having the most legions at hand, Florianus usurped power and acclaimed himself emperor.
This is amazing. So, already, it seems like Aurelian, from what I'm gathering of this video as it's being portrayed right now, moment Aurelian's gone, like, he was like the cord, he was the strength. He's kind of like the Robert Baratheon. I don't know if any of you guys like Game of Thrones or the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, but, like, kind of like if you do, you'll kind of know what I'm going at. Like, Robert Baratheon wins, secures a peace. Though, I think Aurelian's a better leader and person than Robert Baratheon, but what I mean is, when they're living, things are going pretty well, and then when they go, everything falls apart. And that's kind of where I was getting at. And yeah, I kind of wanted to know, I kind of will say about this series, I kind of wanted to know more about Aurelian. Like, he kind of does go into, obviously last video was more about the crisis in general, but I kind of wouldn't have mind if, Dova Hadi had decided to make a video specifically for Aurelian, because I kind of really do want to learn more about the dude. And, we know about his achievements, about who he defeated. He hit the high notes, right? He hit the greatest hits, if you will, from Aurelian last video, like near the last 10 or 5 minutes, and then ends with his death. I kind of wanted to know, like, more about it, I guess is all I'm saying.
To the detriment of Gaul. But he didn't really have the legions. In the hearts of every veteran, only those among Aurelian's officer corps deserved to wear the purple. And among those, Probus currently held the highest rank, so it was him they recognized as Augustus. Florianus didn't relent though, and marched east to face Probus, which proves to be his undoing. Probus's reputation was that of a veteran that won victories in every corner of the empire, and when he faced him in Cilicia, he used his experience to lock Florianus's bigger army at the hot climate of the Sicilian gates. With the legions being tortured by the harsh climate, they just killed the usurper Florianus and joined up with Probus, like they wanted to. And after being recognized by the Senate, Probus defended Moesia against another Gothic invasion, crushing them so hard that they begged for a peace treaty. He then marched to Gaul and began brutally slaughtering all Germanic invaders. As he fought, he pushed them back to the Rhine, recovering the lost forts of the border and killing as many barbarians as possible. By the end of the campaign, he spared the world of 400,000 germs and was acclaimed both Germanicus and Gothicus Maximus. Sadly, the border regions of the Rhine had been severely depopulated by the constant barbarian onslaught, so Probus figured on settling some Germs as civilians in the most affected areas, hoping they would integrate with the local populace. Meanwhile, Diocles was serving in Gaul as well, alongside his fellow officer, Galerius, and seeing him rising through the ranks, he was approached by a soothsayer that proclaimed Diocles would attain great power by slaying a boar. And prophecies never lie. They are just severed. As a diligent soldier, Probus allowed no idleness among his troops. If there were no barbarians to kill, then there were swamps to drain and farms to tend to. He extended that philosophy to the Praetorian Guard, and to keep their treacherous tendencies in check, he appointed a man he highly trusted, Carus, as his Praetorian prefect. Probus then rode on, continuing to defend against barbarians from Rhaetia to the Nile, suppressing revolts from Hispania to Britannia, and ordering the ruins of the empire to be slowly rebuilt. And after celebrating a triumph, he sought to revive a reign.
Okay, so he's incredibly competent, which is good. I wonder how long... We have Aurelian, now we have Probus, I believe? That's what I'm hearing. Then again, I might have to get new headphones soon, because depending on the... It's connected straight to my PC, and depending on the angle, it can kind of... The audio can not sound as great, so... Yeah, I'll say Probus for now, for apologies if I get that wrong. Again, if you've made it this far in this series, you'll know I'm probably not the best. To put it nicely, not the best when it comes to pronouncing these people's names, but I do at least try. And yeah, overall very competent, and I want to see how long Rome can go before they have another bad emperor, another incompetent one.
Campaign against Rome's enemies, starting, as he did, against the Sassanids. And with the number of Rome's enemies already decreasing a lot, Probus expressed joy that perhaps one day Rome won't even need soldiers anymore.
No.
An expression the Praetorians heard loud and clear.
That's quite ambitious. We'll never need soldiers. Hey, by the way, I remember something from the Augustus video. Augustus had originally tried to conquer all of Germania, or at least gone really far as a way to neutralize the threat of the Germans and to perhaps probably just integrate them, but he was betrayed by a former German, a German by birth who was integrated into the Romans, but he betrayed to go back with the Germans, I wonder why no other emperor had tried to accomplish what Augustus did, or was attempting to do, even at like the peak of, well, probably because the Germans, as many centuries went on, probably were strong enough to avoid that, but I don't know. Like, it's just because, like, there's such a persistent issue. Like, you think someone would be like, we need to do something, eventually. I don't know. Even though they did try to kill as many as they could, it's like, I don't know. Then again, the empire was very large, so adding more territories... Empire is so big that they even needed to split it in two. Adding more probably would have been too much. It is amazing, I will say, that they were able to hold such a great landmass, like Rome at its peak. And considering this was a time before, like, travel was fast, like, what we had, and communication was quick, it is just amazing to me how you could keep something as large as Rome as long as they did, I don't know. Sorry, my thoughts are going. So yeah, the Praetorians are here, and I'm going to assume that they're going to do something that's about to upset me, as they always do.
Already pissed at being forced to perform civic duty for once, and with the prospect of a peaceful future making their jobs obsolete, the Praetorian Guard then had Probus murdered. Even though...
Can you not murder a Roman emperor for 5 minutes? I'm just asking for 5 minutes, Praetorians. Oh my gosh. I hate the Praetorians, man. I don't care. Yeah, you got rid of some bad emperors, and for that I'm great. I will give you your due. But overall, I hate this group of people. I hate the Praetorians so much, man.
Though he was about to give them the campaign they wanted. Soon. Very soon. They then acclaimed their prefect Carus as their emperor. Yet another unwilling Augustus to add to the pile. And after having all of Probus' assassins executed and being too old to rule effectively, Carus elevated both of his sons, Carinus and Numerian, as Caesars, despite the weakness of the latter and debauchery of the former. In his reign, he would appoint Diocletian as his cavalry commander, and consul to boot, serving together with a competent soldier, Maximian, who was also a really dumb politician, later sending Constantius to govern Dalmatia, the homeland of Diocles. Picking up where Probus left off, Carus marched east with Numerian to face off the Sassanids, while leaving the west at the hands of Carinus. And as he cleaned up frays from some barbarian invaders in the Sassanid Empire, Shapur's banishment made some weaker demons take his place, and when Carus invaded, he was met with little resistance, allowing him to take all of Mesopotamia, sack Ctesiphon, and cross the Tigris River. While in Rome, Carinus proved again that some apples can fall really fucking far from the tree. The minute he became emperor, he started punishing everyone he'd envied or didn't like, completely trashed the imperial palace, and married and divorced 9 different women.
Oh my goodness. So yeah. Alright, so Rome already has a bad emperor, and it's the Praetorians' fault. So, you know, overall. Oh boy. Okay, so let's see here. Constantine the Great's next. Imperial Wrath. Wow, we're really close, guys. Not gonna lie, I'm really enjoying this series. It's gonna be really sad when... Well, not really, because we have the Byzantines next. I am going to be doing the Byzantines, so... Yeah, we got a little bit more Dovahati in this channel, right?
None of them his actual wife. Once Carus heard of his son's depravities, he declared his intent to substitute him with one of his best legates, Constantius Chlorus. Yet another one of Aurelian's veterans. Having personally helped him crush the Palatine Empire, Constantius was well known for both his talent and loyalty. Acclaimed as Persicus Maximus, Carus prepared to venture even further than even Trajan did.
Oh wow.
And it was then that he was struck by lightning and died. For a competent emperor to incur divine wrath confused a lot of people, but not Commander Diocles, who was sure this must have been part of some grander divine plan. Convinced this was a sign to return home, Diocles convinced Numerian, guarded by his Praetorian prefect, to order them back to the empire. As they marched west, Aper told the legionnaires the emperor had suffered from an eye disease and had to be concealed from the light. So they kept on going, with Aper relaying ever more absurd orders in the emperor's name, while
I'm guessing he's lying and he just wants to take power.
Foul stench arose, all making Diocles grow ever more suspicious. Breaking in to check on Numerian, he found the emperor's corpse rotting in a pool of his own blood. Betrayed by the Praetorian Guard, who could have guessed? Numerian's generals...
Ken? Oh my goodness. It is Constantine, right? I believe I may have read it was Constantine who disbanded the Praetorians. Oh, I'm hoping just someone gets rid of this group.
Then had Aper seized, meeting together in Nicomedia to discuss what to do next. And after realizing Carinus was now the sole emperor, the generals agreed that the greatest among them, Diocles, should rise to confront him. The generals and legions then gathered on a hill outside Nicomedia and proclaimed Diocles as Augustus. He accepted, drawing his sword towards the sun, renaming himself as Gaius Aurelius Valerius Diocletianus, and executing Aper for all to see. Aper, by the way, is Latin for boar. Told ya. Seeking to free the empire from the tyranny of Carinus, Diocletian marched west, and Carinus in turn marched east. Just then another usurper rose up in Pannonia, and man, what's with that fucking place in Trojans? Before Carinus' overwhelming numbers faced off with Diocletian in Illyria, Constantius joined up with his brother in arms, helping him survive the initial battles. Carinus, however, enjoyed the opposite situation, and legion after legion refused to fight for him, defecting to Diocletian's banner. And as he raged on, he was suddenly backstabbed by his Praetorian prefect, one of the many officers he had cucked. Emerging victorious as the sole ruler of the empire, and then immediately crushing the last barbarian horde still raiding the empire, Diocletian concluded Aurelian's legacy, officially putting an end to the crisis of the 3rd century.
Oh wow! Awesome. Awesome. Really happy to hear that Diocletian. So Diocletian's the one who sets up the Tetrarchy. I'm wondering what... I'm obviously speculating. He'll probably go over it obviously in a few minutes, but I am wondering what made him come to that mindset that Rome should be 2. I'm wondering.
That didn't mean peace was assured, far from it. In fact, Diocletian's unending obsession throughout his reign would be to ensure nothing like the crisis ever happened again.
Smart.
The decades of torment had shaped Diocletian into a brilliant, yet cynical mind. And after seeing how irrelevant and unhelpful the Senate was during it all, he grew to despise it even more than Domitian, ignoring it completely. The age of Augustus's principate has ended. No longer would power be derived from the corrupted institutions of the Republic. Rome needed something more. Thus,
Yeah, so I kind of understood why Augustus had kept the Senate. You know, obviously he wasn't just walking around saying, I'm emperor now. Like, he obviously feigned the... He portrayed himself as the savior of the Republic, right? Like, the guy who's gonna bring it back, even though he really didn't, but that's why he kept the Senate. And I'm assuming many emperors after him kept the Senate because of the idea that they're here, we'll just deal with it, you know, they're an institution that's been around, maybe it's a part of Roman identity, like, I could imagine a lot of reasons as to why, but, like, as I've watched this series, the back of my head, I've been thinking, what's the point of the Senate? Get rid of them. Obviously, there's a lot more, I'm sure that this series doesn't cover. There's probably a lot more important to the Senate that, you know, a historian or two will tell me about, like, oh, well, it wasn't that easy because you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm just speaking of what about this, you know. I'm just thinking, like, do we really need them? Like, can't just the Emperor get rid of them, you know? I don't know. Not to say, is he about to get rid of them, I wonder? No, I want to see.
the Emperor's authority now derived from nothing else than divine right. The age of the dominant had dawned.
Oh, wow. Like the divine right to rule. So, does he get rid of them?
Diocletian not as your princeps, your first citizen, but as Dominus, your lord and master.
Oh, wow.
And to prevent the past from repeating itself, Diocletian concluded a single emperor could hardly rule effectively if the empire faced multiple threats at the same time. Diocletian knew only truly great men could rule over the whole Roman Empire. So to build a system where great men weren't needed, he chose to elevate his friend Maximian as Caesar, assuming the title of Jovius, another name for Jupiter, and Maximian taking the title of Herculius, the son of Jupiter. With two emperors to help each other, and their authority now emanating from divine right, Diocletian severely discouraged future usurpers from rising up as they used to. And with his rule consolidating, Diocletian's attention shifted to the Praetorian Guard. Oh, the Praetorian Guard. He detested them with the fury of 1,000 souls, but instead of killing them all, Diocletian felt more appropriate to humiliate them instead. All Praetorians were then kicked out of the imperial palace, cut down in both number and wealth, and sent to guard an irrelevant shithole of a fort in Rome, given no task but to see at how irrelevant they now were.
Dang. Alright. So, okay, Diocletian is officially a man after my own heart. My own heart. He might even be my third favorite emperor already, just because he humiliated the Praetorian Guard. Oh man, I just hate them. I hate them so much, and he hated them too. So, yeah, this is beyond intelligent. This is so smart, and like I said, my new ranking might be Augustus 1, Aurelian 2, Diocletian number 3 now. Like, it's right, like, what he just said right now, Dovahati, like, you know, only a single great person could really rule the entire emperor, so making a system without always needing to rely on great people, because eventually there's not going to be a great person. Smart, you know, the idea of the dominant, or, I guess, it's similar to the divine right to rule, right? Like, my power comes from the almighty, higher powers. So yeah, rebelling against him would be like rebelling against the gods, which, yeah, discourages rebellion, like he just said. And, what else? Yeah, and having two emperors acting at the same time could always ensure that they have someone to fall back on and help. You know, because when it's just one emperor, you know, it's like they have to bear all that weight on their shoulders, but have someone else there to back up. You know, I don't know, I just think already, this is already genius. And yeah, a complete restructuring of the government probably ensures that Rome exists for a little bit longer, and I just think, yeah, good job. Yeah, moving past Augustus, it already might be one of the most revolutionary things that an emperor has done, because yeah, Augustus kept this like the Senate and his system. I forgot what he just said. He called it its official name, but yeah, replacing it with the dominant. Probably the. I just think that's genius. Very good. Though I would have just straight up outright gotten rid of the Praetorians. Him humiliating them and basically crippling them. A good second option, if you ask me.
They now were. Indeed, their treachery now only reached as far as the Milvian Bridge did, right beside the entrance to Rome. And for those of you who have kept this place in mind, keep keeping it. The discouragement, however, didn't include barbarians, forcing him to go crush some Sarmatians, and later sending Maximian to Milan, where he was to rule the west and hunt down some bandits raiding central Gaul. Regarding the Sassanids, Diocletian had the weak demon king bow to his whim, making him return Armenia and give up more of Mesopotamia. And as he did, the Germans in the Rhine started naval expeditions of their own, ransacking the Gallic coast, all while the Alemanni and Burgundians redestroyed the Limes Germanicus. So to deal with the pirates, Maximian sent his best naval officer, Carausius, while he fought the Germans on the land. Unfortunately, Carausius cared for nothing but gold, not only taking the wealth the Franks stole for himself, but outright letting the Germans pass by and sack entire towns, just so he could intercept them and take the raided wealth for himself. Horrified by this news, Maximian demanded Carausius should come back to him and answer for his crimes, which of course he refused, stealing the imperial fleet for himself, using the wealth to bribe the Britons to support him, allying with the Franks, helping them take over the Gallic coast and proclaiming himself Augustus of his new Britannic Empire.
Oh no.
A really dumb politician indeed.
Yeah, that's
and
really
no
stupid.
one was more pissed about this than Diocletian. The legitimacy of the Diarchy at stake, Diocletian refused Carausius' demands to be legitimized, elevating Maximian as an Augustus to save his reputation, then coordinating with him to launch a counter-invasion, brutally ravaging Carausius' German allies. Having helped him do so, Diocletian returned east again, got flanked by rude Sarmatians again, and crushed them again. Maximian then built his own fleet, completely botched the invasion, and then blamed everything on the weather.
Yeah, okay, so we're kind of seeing that the Tetrarchy, before it gets to the Tetrarchy, now we're seeing that this also brings up its own kind of issues, I think we're starting to see, because what if one, co-emperor is incompetent, leaving the other to clean up the messes, which can leave its own set of issues, as we're seeing right now.
Hearing the news, Diocletian sighed and marched west again, meeting with his co-emperor in Mediolanum, throwing a party to save Maximian's reputation and making sure to humiliate the Senate some more. But the Diarchy wasn't working as it should. If one of the emperors needed help from the other, it left their part of the empire leaderless.
Exactly.
And so, Diocletian doubled down on his new system, transforming the Diarchy into the Tetrarchy, with the theme of 4 emperors, 1 empire. And he just had the right man in mind, his 2 veteran friends, Constantius and Galerius. The latter was then elevated as Caesar of the East by Diocletian, arranged to marry his daughter, and the former as Caesar of the West by Maximian, who had already divorced his wife and married Maximian's daughter. So here's Diocletian's Tetrarchy, 1 empire, ruled by 2 senior Augusti, with 2 junior Caesars to serve as heirs and rule the shit provinces.
Okay, I'm really digging this. So, Diocletian sets up, he sets up the Tetrarchy, both of them at first, but then obviously, he's not, he's not good at what he's doing, at least in regards to having to battle and, keep his side of the West, safe. So what does he do? He sets up basically heirs. I mean, the 2 junior Caesars are here to be heirs, so if Diocletian dies, one of his heirs jumps, and then... Okay, yeah, this is really smart. I see the potential for disaster in this, but I really do think I'm seeing where he's getting. Rome is such a huge, complex machine that dividing responsibilities is good, and in a way, these 2 junior Caesars show what they're made of if they can handle, as he just said right now, the crappy provinces. They'll do better when they're playing with the bigger ones, the better ones. So I'm really digging this. this reform and what he's thinking of right now. And yeah, again, I still see disaster. There's a lot of potential for disaster, but well, we'll find out if history proves me right with the system.
Each had their own capital, borders didn't mean shit really. They pretty much just did whatever Diocletian told them to, and once the Augusti died, the Caesars would take over their place, and 2 new Caesars would be chosen.
Ah, okay, so it sets up a continuous strain of the juniors become the seniors, and then they set up new junior. Okay, that's smart. I dig that for sure.
You'll notice the senator is completely powerless over here.
Yeah, he basically got rid of the senators, right? I mean, they're still there, but they don't really have any, even pretend power, it seems.
They were all one big family now. Diocletian hosted both of Constantius's and Maximian's sons in his court, among them an ambitious little cunt, Maxentius. He then sent Galerius to go crush a revolt in the Nile, and then Constantius to go put down Carausius' revolt. Being granted the hardest task in the empire, and seeing the port of Bononia was the main base of Carausius' fleet, Constantius first cleared the Gallic coast of the Franks, then laid siege to Bononia, making his legions build a dam over the port, denying it any relief, and forcing them to surrender. With his Brittonic empire now crumbling, Carausius was then murdered by his Praetorian prefect, Allectus. Nah, just kidding, he was his finance minister of all people, but who cares. Constantius then built a fleet.
Okay, I thought it was like Praetorians, but nah, he's not a Praetorian. Oh man, what an idiot, dude. What's just an idiot.
Invaded and had Allectus killed as well. With their partners in crime now dead, the Franks were let off the leash and started slaughtering all innocent civilians around them.
As they
marched
do.
south to sack Londinium, Constantius halted them, completely exterminating every last Frank, and when he turned to start what was gonna be a brutal siege for Londinium, the local Brits received him as their hero, acclaiming him as the restorer of eternal light, Reditor Lucis Aeterna. The Reditor Constantius then returned to Trier in the Rhine, while his Augustus Maximian was fighting Frankish pirates that had gotten all the way to Numidia, germs in North Africa.
Wow.
Imagine that. And after dealing with some Berber barbarians in the mountains, we get to what most defined Diocletian's reign. Reforms, and a fuckload of reforms. Starting off, not only did Diocletian more than double the number of imperial provinces, but his new system of dioceses would be stolen by the Christians of all people. The governor of each diocese not only now ruled over less resources, but the soldiers in his lands were now led by another dude, the Dux. In fact, Diocletian made it so bureaucratic and military careers were permanently distinguished from each other. And speaking of the legions, Diocletian also got rid of the old cohort system as a whole, basing much of his thinking from what emperors like Gallienus had to endure. The barbarian invasions were now too big for 5,000-man strong legions sparsely placed to deal with. So he did two things. One, he hugely increased the size of the army from 390,000 men to 580,000 men, most of them stationed in the east. The navy got a bump as well. And two, the Roman army now displayed two main units, the Limitani Ripensis, plebs that guarded the frontiers part-time, and the new legion, the Comitatensis, making up nimbler units of 1,000 men each and supported with a lot of cavalry. The legions were now far more mobile and practical, so much so Diocletian built some 20 new legions, and inspired by Aurelian's walls, every major city across the empire began building walls of their own.
Smart.
In this new system,
I'm loving the evolution of the armor of Rome. I love that attention to detail, Dovahati. Great work. And yeah, like, okay, great reformer. He's a reformer, this Diocletian, and he kind of has to be. Like, it's smart that he has in his head, crisis of the 3rd century was the worst thing so far. We need to ensure that it could never happen again, that something like that can't happen. And yes, the Germans have been a threat since the very beginning, so a straight up military reform, and for what I'm seeing, guarding as an effective way to keep them out, smart, very smart.
The Limitani defending the borders, small invaders were easily repelled, and large invasions were both spotted and relayed to other troops. Once the big barbarian hordes broke through, they would be unable to break through the nearest city walls, lacking siege weapons and all, getting harassed by local forces until the nearest emperor had time to muster the legions and kick the barbarians back to their mud huts. Defense in depth, we now call it. A common strategy for large empires. And this was all terribly expensive as well. So to collect the taxes to pay for it all, Diocletian sent his agents to perform the first empire-wide census in history, cataloging every last property, land, pleb, patrician there was, figuring out how much each citizen could provide. Sadly, the denarii by that point was utterly worthless, so Diocletian issued new coins, among them a new gold coin, the solidus, the gold coin, the one everyone and their peasant mother would copy for millennia. It would take a while until the monetary reforms took effect, so Diocletian had his new army of bureaucrats to come up with an equivalence chart of items to temporarily replace currency. When the tax collectors came...
So, yes, I'm already loving this because... For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge medieval dude. I'm a huge fan of medieval times, medieval Europe, England. Like, I think that might be my most favorite time period in all of history. I love a lot of fiction based on, like, my favorite games are like the Dark Souls series, and I was really obsessed with Mount and Blade, like Warband, which is like the ultimate medieval simulator. You know, you can rise to knighthood and be kings and like fight and just it's all really awesome. And so seeing Diocletian basically introducing concepts of medieval that would persist even into medieval times is just super interesting. Wait, he might add more. Give me a second.
The plebs were allowed to pay with anything. Foods, goods, their mother, whatever they had. And part and parcel of Diocletian's enlightened autocracy, he standardized Rome's taxation system on all provinces, meaning that Italy, long exempt from taxes, now paid as much as Illyrian provincials and the like did. Only Rome remains safe from this, as despite the Senate, Diocletian still respected the Eternal City. But as you likely gathered, he didn't care for plebs at all. In fact, in order to further stabilize the empire, Diocletian transformed the plebs into proto-peasants, serfs, if you will.
Alright, I was right to wait. Okay, awesome. That's the beginning of serfdom, or at least the earliest. Okay, that is insane. I love learning about this. Like I said, I'm a huge medieval dude, and seeing the armor from Rome basically evolving into similar looking medieval armor. The gold coin that we all know of, like, that's used, and even in, like, fiction, right? Like, you pay with a gold coin in D&D, like, and now serfdom. Basically, he's laying the ground roots for, like, medieval society, because, like, after Rome falls, like, medieval everything is kind of, like, in a way trying to emulate Rome. Like, I don't know, I think that's really interesting, and that's just super cool to learn about. And just to see Diocletian has such a big part to play, it already really puts him high on my list in terms of favorite Roman emperors, so that's really cool.
They were now tied to their land, and get this, permanently chained to hereditary professions. The plebs were now to inherit their father's profession and never be allowed to quit. A reform done so that the empire would never run short of crucial professions. While these reforms tackled pretty much all problems inherent of the 3rd century, inflation still ran rampant, and man, did that ever trigger Diocletian. Such inflation forced his own soldiers to blow their entire savings just to live another day, and every time he was reminded of this injustice, it enraged him deeply. And who did he blame? None other than the merchants. None of them Jewish though. Hadrian really didn't mess around.
Yeah, he
and so
basically
to fight
got
this
rid of
injustice, Diocletian wrote a fucking huge book, listing every single item that could be sold in the empire and establishing a maximum price it could be sold for. But no one paid heed to it, even if the death penalty was at stake. Alas, the world just wasn't ready for the full force of Diocletian's reforming genius. And with, say, most of his reforms an astounding success, Diocletian then went to fight.
Well, yeah, you can't win them all, right? Even Diocletian is still human, and not everything's gonna work, but so far a lot is working, and yeah, just a great reformer, you know? I guess as this series progresses, we'll see just how effective in the long run his reforms are, and just, you know, if time will tell, were they good in the long run, or did they were they bad for Rome? I guess we'll find out. But so far, I will at least say he is quite the reformer, and yeah, I think it is smart though, right? Like after, I guess being near the end of the crisis of the third century, like yeah, he needed to be smart. He's like, Rome needs to be different. It needs to evolve in order to persist, right? I think he has the right mindset, if nothing else.
Against some other Sarmatian invasion. Again, this time annihilating them so hard they pretty much stopped being an issue. Calling himself Sarmaticus Maximus and building a series of forts to strengthen the Danube, with 15 legions worth of Limitanni to guard it, which was much
Okay, that is great, but oh wait a minute, sorry Trajan, we couldn't keep
easier now without the Dacian.
Okay. Alright, I like that subtlety. Like, what I mean is, yes, Trajan brought Rome to its... In an expansive sense, he brought Rome to its peak, but a lot of territory probably wasn't that necessary, and obviously Rome is big enough, and in the time before, you know, instant communication, like communication traveled, and I guess the bigger the bigger the territory, the longer news took to come. So I kind of like this because it's like, yeah, he's fortifying Rome, and we've seen Rome at its peak with Trajan, but now with this loss, like it's really prudent, I'd say, like getting rid of this, like to keep less issues, but at the same time, we're seeing Rome shrink now, right? We're seeing it lose territory and having to evolve to keep the people who, you know, the enemies out, because the old ways aren't working, with showing that even Rome's enemies are getting, you know, in a sense better, and eventually do get the best of Rome. So I don't know, I just think it's a subtle, like, yeah, Diocletian's definitely making reforms, but Rome is on a decline. Even if we don't want to acknowledge it, we don't have much long until it straight up starts falling. So, yeah.
Just sticking out into the Carpathian Mountains. Meanwhile, Galerius was finishing crushing some wee wizards down the Nile, then went to Syria to face the renewed Sassanid threat, none other than Shapur's own son, Narseh. Yes, the demon had laid eggs before his banishment, ensuring that his demonic line would continue tormenting the world.
So yeah, I'm grateful he brought up Shapur, because he just mentioned earlier in this video that he was in exile or something. Last video he didn't mention Shapur, like, going into exile, so I was a little confused. But yeah, you think they would have, like, Rome, even, I know they're in the midst of reforming and dealing with other stuff, but you think they would have looked over to the Sassanids and be like, they're a threat, like, they captured a Roman emperor. Okay, now this is the funny part. Did they treat him kindly, or did they kill him? And if they killed him, how did they kill him? Did they flay him, or did they put molten gold down his throat? There are documents relating to what happened to Valerian, and so it's funny. Was Shapur treating him greatly, or was he a demonic beast who tortured him daily? Who knows, but either way, like, let's just go with the assumption. Let's go with the assumption, just humor me on this, that he did treat Valerian awful. He did torture him, and then he did kill him. How he killed him, whether pouring molten gold down his throat or flaying him alive, pick your poison. The point is, either way, he captured a Roman emperor. And let's just say he killed a Roman emperor. Valerian may have been the first, right? Or, like, at least one of the first to be captured or killed, and that's a rare thing, especially at that point. So you think it would have been like, okay, these Persians are serious business, right? Ashur was bad. Shapur's even worse. Like, I don't know. You think so, right? But I'm glad to see he's back. And to see if they deal with that in any way.
And after usurping power from the weaker demons, Narses sought to restore his father's reign of terror, invading Armenia and then the Empire, and say it with me, slaughtering everyone on his path. Galerius then went to stop him at Carrhae, but was completely overwhelmed by his endless hordes of evil. Barely managing to return safely from the battle, he was met by one furious Diocletian. For having disgraced Rome, Diocletian made his junior Caesar march a mile on foot throughout the desert sun. And having punished him so, he granted him some reinforcements to invade for Armenia this time, cucking Narses' cavalry in the mountains and beating him back. The Sassanids then camped away to recover, only to be caught by surprise by Galerius, forcing the demon to flee in panic, letting his soldiers, wife, and harem of chaos to be captured alive by Galerius. The Romans then marched south and sacked Ctesiphon for, the 6th time now? I lost count. Diocletian and Galerius then got Narses to agree meeting up and discuss terms of peace. And get this, the Sassanids started out by demanding the Romans to be magnanimous in victory, which just made Diocletian explode in anger. It was only after beating all of Narses' minions to death with Valyrian skeleton that he was able to get his point across.
Okay, I don't think he actually beat it with his skeleton. Or maybe he did, I don't know, history is wild, but either way, the gall, right? To just show up after you've lost and be like, okay, I demand you do this. Like, obviously the Romans were being very generous, like, hey, come here, we can discuss. But I think the underlying subtext is, you've lost, come here, and essentially give up. So, I don't know. It's just, like, I guess the audacity to after losing, just to show up and be like, I want this, like, I don't know. Like, you're not really in a position to discuss what you want, really, at this point.
The emperors then humiliated the Sassanids, retaking Armenia, expanding on Mesopotamia, and setting the Sassanid borders under permanent Roman occupation, ensuring peace for the next 30 years. And to thank for their efforts, Egypt threw a big revolt. It's simple really. With Diocletian now cracking hard on the ancient Egyptian tradition of tax evasion, they revolted under a dude whose name I won't even bother you with. After pacifying the countryside, Diocletian personally sieged Alexandria for 9 gruesome months. After finally breaching in, Diocletian vowed to go full Caracalla on Alexandria until the blood reached his horse's knees, which was when his horse lay down on the pool of blood. As a pious man, Diocletian took the hint, and was merciful instead, ending with the citizens of Alexandria erecting a statue in Diocletian's horse's honor.
Wow, that horse really saved them, huh?
The spiritual sacrifice, but as the priests carved into the animal's entrails to read the god's words, they couldn't find anything. And when they were questioned what the problem was, he said that the Christians were fucking with his sacrifice. And yeah, they were. Furious at their impiety, and as Diocletian revived Decius' edict against Christians, he saw yet another foul cult arise, Manichaeism. Seeing it for the demonic Persian chaos cult it was, Diocletian ordered all Manichaeists to be persecuted, destroying their temples, burning their religious texts, and executing every last one of them. And you know what? It worked. Manichaeism never grew too big and it was eventually eradicated from the empire, which gave both emperors some ideas. To decide what they should do, both emperors went to visit the Oracle of Apollo, one of the purest aspects of Sol Invictus. But he was unable to help them, claiming that the impiety of the world had blinded him. For both emperors, enough was enough. For centuries the Christians shunned Rome's gods, defied its emperors, and set fire to everything else. They deserved nothing less than a great persecution.
Oh no.
1, 2, 3 and go. Diocletian then wrote his edicts. By imperial decree, all churches, temples, texts, wealth and rights were destroyed across the empire. But the Christians didn't comply, and as punishment, the Christians were fined, demoted, deposed, jailed and exiled in the army and state. Now bitchier than ever, true to Christ-cooked tradition, they complained, lied, disobeyed, profaned, revolted and hid no matter the cost. Despite Diocletian's mercy, the Christians tore the edicts from the streets and set fire to the imperial palace. Twice. The Christians had broken the law, ancient Roman virtues, and by then, Diocletian's patience. All lawbreakers were executed, and emperors ordered to kill, jail, flog, nail, cleave, flay, and torture every last Christian that disobeyed. Salt was rubbed in their wounds, forced to kneel to Rome's deities, and gouged, impaled, threatened, depraved, and injured in every way. Their leadership was devastated, and Diocletian made it law to kill, jail, flog, nail, cleave, hang, flay, torture, gouge, impale, threaten, deprave, bruise, stab, injure, behead, mutilate, destroy, whip, tear, strike, cut, savage, wound, exile, sack, menace, and burn every single lawbreaking Christian.
I saw war. I saw wounding. I saw...
Thousands of Christians lie dead, their leadership gutted, and churches destroyed. But in the end, it was too little, too late. The Christians continued proliferating, disobeying edicts, driving off authority.
Yeah, as a Christian, I can attest that Christianity lived on. Oh boy. Alright, Diocletian, I'm gonna keep you in number 3. You haven't beaten Aurelian, but I'll keep you number 3 for now. So yeah, he really cracked down on that, but yeah, Christianity outlives Rome, as we all know, and yeah, kind of just a waste. It seems like kind of just a waste of effort on Diocletian's part.
And overall negating all of the persecution's achievements. Diocletian and Galerius had killed many Christians, but at the end of the day, that's all they accomplished. Constantius had predicted the persecution's failure, so he never invested too heavily on it. Maximian did though, but he was nevertheless unsuccessful as well. To calm down, Maximian celebrated their 20 years of co-rule by bringing Diocletian for his first ever official visit to the Eternal City.
Oh yeah, he never showed up there.
Maximian ordered built, and Diocletian finished building the Baths of Diocletian, yet another massive bathing complex. It fit well with the massive palace he built back in Dalmatia too, more on that later. But try as he might to chill, Diocletian couldn't stop noticing how Rome had degenerated from the days of old. When he looked at the streets, all he saw were them filled with dirty plebs, adulterous whores, spreading Christ-cockery, and corrupt praetorians just looking for someone regal to stab.
Of course.
Enraged, Diocletian cut his visit short, refusing to attend his 9th consulship ceremony, already knowing the state the Senate would be in. He then returned east, helping Galerius to defend against a small Dacian invasion. But as he assisted him, Diocletian developed a crippling illness. He then returned to Nicomedia, opening a circus built in his honor, and then secluding himself in his palace, growing ever weaker. When everyone grew to assume he had died, Diocletian reappeared, an unrecognizable shadow of his former self. Diocletian then gathered his men on the
I wonder what illness he fell to. I'll definitely be googling it after this video, but that's interesting.
very same hill he was in 2 decades ago, to proclaim his resignation, the first emperor to do so. Having become too weak to rule, he vowed to step out.
Like, a lot of his deeds are revolutionary, and like, as a reformer, this is interesting that he would just step down. Like, usually, majority of kings or emperors, they just die in office, you know? They die. At most is just being deposed, right? Like, you get conquered, maybe they let you live, but you're not king anymore. But this is interesting. He just stepped down from power. He might be the first, right? That's gotta be unheard of, but it just falls in line with him being who he was, Diocletian. Wow. Just wow.
So that the younger Caesars could take over, convincing Maximian to do the same, though he really didn't want to.
Oh wow, so he set up that when one senior emperor steps down, the other has to? I don't know. Obviously, look, we'll probably go more into it in the next videos to come. But if so, man, that sucks for Maximian, right? Like, what if you have to step down now? That stinks, but oh well.
Diocletian then elevated Galerius to the position of Augustus, as did Maximian to Constantius, and to fill up the 2 vacant Caesar slots, Maximinus and Constantius' sons were ignored. Maxentius was one of those little shits that could never be trusted with power, but it was Constantius' son that Diocletian was most concerned with. It was then left to Galerius to pick to the next Caesars, choosing an old military friend of his, Valerius Severus, yet another non-Severan, and also his own nephew, Dia. The Tetrarchy now, formally, looked like this, but really was more like this right now.
So yes, as mentioned previously, yeah, when the old 2 senior Caesars step down, the 2 juniors take up the role of Augustus, and they set up, okay, so to keep the power going. Alright, good to see that being practiced.
Here's the new Caesars not quite yet in power, there's Maximian and Maxentius left out, and here is Diocletian, spending his retirement in his Dalmatian homeland, cultivating the noblest of all vegetables,
wow,
cabbages.
That's very
and in
nice.
The West, Constantius ruled on, crushing even more germs on the Rhine and humiliating the Picts beyond the wall, setting a base in Eboracum, modern York, and getting acclaimed as Britannicus Maximus. But Constantius's time was also at an end. Nearing his death, he called upon his soldiers to gather around him and listen to his last wishes. And the words that Constantius then uttered would change Rome and the world forever.
Is this Constantine? Well, he is next, so I think that's a fair guess. I think that's Constantine. I'm gonna guess. And I will find out next video. So Constantine was the emperor, I believe, who converted to Christianity and made it, like, I think he made it the main religion of Rome. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to learning more about him, because that's really all I know about him, and to be quite frank with all of you. And yeah, that was a really interesting video. I really liked that. I love learning about Diocletian. Literally knew nothing about him before this video, and now he's like my third favorite emperor. So definitely, you know, thumbs up to you, Diocletian. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.